All right, we've arrived. We got to put it all together because the factoring problems you're going to see are just going to be like, you need to factor this. It's not going to tell you which of the techniques to use. Okay. So how do we approach any problem that just says factor? Right. Well, from the last video, I hope we remember, always start by looking for a GCF. Always. Then what's going to happen is what you do next will be dependent on how many terms it has. If it's 2 terms, you're going to look for one of those formulas: difference of squares, sum of cubes, or difference of cubes. That's what we had for 2 terms. 3 terms. So is it 1x squared or more than 1x squared? If it's just 1x squared, you lucked out. You can do just the x and x and add the numbers in. If it's more than 1x squared, you've got an AC method going. And if it's 4 terms, try grouping. So it's really important that you realize that what dictates what you're going to do is number of terms, but you always, always, always start with the GCF. And then last, whenever you're done, you always want to look and say, is there anything more I could factor? You look at your factors. Does one of them have a GCF you missed in the beginning? Pull it out. Is one of them another difference of 2 squares? Factor it, right? So you always want to make sure every time you factor to ask yourself, does anything factor more? Okay. And then again, at the end, you could always check by doing the multiplying and multiplying it all out to make sure you got what you started with. So I'm going to do the first one here. Actually, I'm going to do the third one. And then I'm going to have you pause the video and work on the rest. So the third one, it has 4 terms, but what am I supposed to do first? I'm supposed to look for a GCF. Is there anything that I can pull out of all of these? There is. I can pull out a 10. Again, my brain doesn't trust itself, so I always just double check. 60x squared minus 20x plus 30ax minus 10a to make sure I did that stuff right before I move on. So GCF, done. I still have 4 terms, so I'm going to factor by grouping. Remember in the last video when I was factoring by grouping, I did this preemptive write down the GCF in front and leave the space for the final factors because this 10 is going to get in my way. So now I'm just going to focus on grouping the remaining 4 terms, pulling out what's common. And then I see that I have 3x minus 1 times 2x plus a. All right, so go ahead and pause the video and work on the remaining factoring problems. All right, here we go, checking in on how it went. So let's see, it looks like I had a GCF of s squared in this first one. So I pulled that out. I'm left with 3 terms. There is a number in front of the r squared. So I needed to use the AC method. That's an r squared. I multiplied the a times the c. I found the pair of numbers that multiplied to negative 120 but added to positive 7. Broke it up into 4 terms. Grouped. And my final answer has my original GCF out front. Gosh, number 2 is nice in comparison, right? 1c squared, no GCF, 1c squared. So it's just c and c. Find the 2 numbers that multiply to negative 24 that add to 5. There they are. I like number 2. And then there was 2 more here. So here's the question for number 4. Did you pull the GCF out first? Because that makes the problem immensely easier. You don't have to use the AC method here. You pull out the 5, and then you're left with just 1b squared. So you're looking for the 2 numbers that multiply to positive 9, but add to negative 6, which would be negative 3 and negative 3. So I did write it as b minus 3 squared. You could have left it like this. That would have been fine. And then we had another GCF of 5 in the last one, leaving us with a difference of 2 squares inside, which I then factored using the formula. All right, you're ready to tackle the factoring practice. Good luck.